Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina Abil Qasim al-Mustafa Muhammad. Wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. La siyama baqiyatullahi fil aradin. Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu al-sharif. Allahumma akhrijni min dhulumat al-wahm wa akrimni bi nur al-fahm. اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and seeking His guidance and support, we start a new course in this semester, and that is on Transcendent philosophy. It's about the general outlines and principles of Hikmat Muta'aliyah, which was founded by the late Mulla Sadra, Sadruddin Shirazi. The book that we are using is this book, by Mr. Ubudiyat, Abdul Rasul Ubudiyat, and this is also the back cover of the book. He is a person who is very much focused and dedicated to a study of Transcendent philosophy. For some years we used to be together in the same institute. I was in Department of Religions, but he was in philosophy, not in the department because department was mostly for teaching at that time. He was doing more research, and every day he was in his room studying and writing, mashallah. And he himself is a graduate of philosophy discipline from Imam Khomeini Institute. Those who studied in Hawz Ilmiya of England, you remember the very first book on philosophy we studied was Falsafe Muqaddamati, which was based on Ayatollah Mutahhari's works, and that was also by Mr. Ubudiyat. So this book is a summarized version of another book which is called Nizam Hikmat Sadrai, so System of Transcendent Philosophy, that was published in 3 volumes, and this is one volume, Khutut Kulliye Hikmat Muta'aliyah. But general outlines of Transcendent philosophy. So it's a summarized version of those 3 volumes. And in the introduction, Mr. Ubudiyat says that this book can be used for PhD courses, and in any case, it needs some background information about philosophy. And the edition that I am using, which I hope is the latest edition, is the second edition, but fifth reprint, because they did about 9 years ago a kind of revision for the third print of the books. It's a second edition, so we are using that one. Okay, this is as a kind of introduction to the author, to the book, and it's written as a textbook from the beginning, and this is why it is published by SAMT. There is an organization responsible for publishing textbooks for universities, especially in humanities, but also other sciences. So them, jointly with Imam Khomeini Institute, they have published this book. The book comes with a kind of foreword. Then chapter 1 is about Mulla Sadra as a person, his life, his educational background, and then development, and his public, books that he compiled. The second chapter is about beginning of Transcendent philosophy. The third is about أصالة وجود, أصالة الوجود واعتبارية الماهية, primordiality of existence. The fourth is about تشکیک در وجود, the fact that existence is graded. Fifth, about the fact that ma'lul, the effect, is totally dependent on the cause, and wujud of existence of ma'lul is wujud rabit. It's like ma'na al-harfi. 6 is about haraka. 7 is about harakat jawhari, in particular, substantial motion. 8 is about knowledge by presence. 9 is about conceptual knowledge, ilm husuli. 10 is about wujud zihni, mental existence. 11 is about theology, of course philosophical theology, or some people may call theosophy. 12, knowledge of God about other things. 13th and 14th are related. 13th is انسان شناسی ابن سینا, philosophical anthropology according to Avicenna. 14th is انسان شناسی صدر المتألهین, anthropology according to Transcendent philosophy. So these are 14 chapters of the book, and inshallah we intend bi'Iznillah to complete the book, inshallah. I don't like to leave books incomplete, and few times recently we had to do this because the semester in Qom finishes, but it's in my mind, inshallah we will go and complete those books that we left incomplete. Usul al-Falsafa, alhamdulillah, we managed to continue. So inshallah we intend and aim at finishing. Now let us start with the first chapter. So this is more a general outlook about his life, but scientific, academic life, not that much of family life, etc. Sadruddin Muhammad ibn Ibrahim. So his father was Ibrahim, he was himself Muhammad. Qawami Shirazi. This is why sometimes they call Sadruddin Shirazi, and sometimes they call him Sadrul Muta'allihin. He's Sadruddin, but they call him also Sadrul Muta'allihin. He's head of Muta'allihin, head of theologians. His title is Sadrul Muta'allihin normally, or Mulla Sadra, or people who study philosophy, sometimes they call him Akhund. In Usul, when they say Akhund, means Akhund Khurasani, Sahibul Kifaya. But in philosophy, when they say Akhund, they mean Mulla Sadra, Sahibul Aswar. He was born into a rich and influential family. He was from childhood outstanding in his sharp mind, his intelligence, and also search for knowledge and curiosity. Therefore, his father had hope, great hope in his future in learning and sciences, and he did his best to prepare for the progress of Sadruddin. But unfortunately, his father passed away, and then after his father passed away, he moved to Isfahan. Isfahan at that time was a great hub for learning. And according to the author and some others, if we can divide life of Mulla Sadra in relation to knowledge into three phases, three parts. The first part starts with moving to Isfahan. When he went to Isfahan, he studied among different subjects. He studied ulum naqli and aqli, both. Ulum naqli, transmitted sciences, are those which are also sometimes known as traditional sciences. So basically, fiqh, usul, hadith, dirayatul hadith, ilm al-rijal, tafsir, these kind of things he studied. And it is said that his great teacher in this phase was Sheikh Bahai, Sheikh Bahauddin Amili from Jabal Amil, southern Lebanon. He had moved to Iran, and as you know, he had a very high position. He was chief alim in that era, so he had official position with Safavids. He was born in 953 after Hijrah and passed away in 1031. So Mulla Sadra studied with Sheikh Bahai. In intellectual sciences like logic, philosophy, ʿIrfan and Nazari, etc., he studied with Mir Damad, Mir Muhammad Baqir Astarabadi, who is known as Mir Damad. He was born in 969 and passed away in 1041. 4 years actually before Mulla Sadra passed away. Mir Damad passed away. So both Sheikh Bahai and Mir Damad were also very much involved in Sayr Suluk, in a spiritual wayfaring. So Mulla Sadra benefited from their spiritual side as well. They say maybe Mulla Sadra also benefited from Mir Abul Qasim Fendreski, sometimes they just call Mir Fendreski, who was living from 970 to 1049. So perhaps he benefited from him also in Isfahan. After studying in Isfahan, then unfortunately a time came that there were attacks against Mulla Sadra by some people who didn't like philosophy. Also, Mulla Sadra himself had some changes in his own general attitude. He became more interested in spirituality and actually having very active spiritual life. So in the second phase of life, he didn't continue with kind of formal learning and teaching, and he was more into contemplation and ibadah and sayr suluk. And he himself says, as inshallah we will mention later, that in this phase Allah helped him to understand directly through shuhud, by witnessing. Whatever he had learned in the first phase, whatever through burhan, through decisive, certain argument or demonstration, he had learned. Now in this phase he was able to find them directly, to witness them in a mystical experience, and more. Inshallah, I will quote from Muqaddami Asfar. The third phase of his life is that after he had learned properly in the first phase, and after he had mystical findings in the second phase, then he started teaching students, some of great students like Fayyaz and Faiz, who were both his sons-in-law as well, and other scholars. And he also compiled some of his major works in this period. He passed away in 1045 in journeying towards Hajj, in pilgrimage towards Mecca. He passed away. So he lived altogether 65 to 66 years, but he had very blessed life. So the author says, if you want to have a glimpse of personality and also achievement of Mulla Sadra, you should remember these points. So he mentions here 11 important points. Then you can see really why we so much emphasize on Mulla Sadra. Number one, he is a kind of philosopher who was very much involved in spirituality. He was not interested in fame or money or position, or just learning for the sake of learning, for example, or teaching for the sake of teaching, etc. He had great search for truth from childhood, which is search for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he had a very spiritual life. So in the beginning of Asfar, if you go to volume 1, page 8, he says that whatever he had learned through burhan, now he has learned through kashf wa shuhud, through mystical findings and more. So beginning of Al-Aswar, volume 1, page 8, he says this. So we are dealing with a philosopher who is very, very deeply spiritual and also capable of having fruits of his spirituality in the form of ma'rifah, not just feeling spiritual or being a nice, sincere person, but not that much having results of that in the field of ma'rifah. Number two, he was also very much familiar, or according to the book, an expert on theoretical ʿIrfan. So he was very much familiar with the ideas of, for example, Ibn Arabi. We will talk about it later as well. 3, he was familiar to the extent that he is one of the best commentators of Peripatetic philosophy. Many times I say this to people that we discuss, or sometimes in lectures, that it's very good if you are open in mind, you know, discuss things, you know, ask for reasons, you don't just follow previous ulama, no matter how great they are. Just because you love them, you follow them, or you imitate, you know, them. No, you should have dynamic, critical, analytic mind, open thinker, be an open thinker. But this should be coming with really understanding available scholarship and feeling loyal to that and loving those scholars. If you love the tradition and you are acting as member of that tradition, but remain open-minded. It's not that you want to prove that they were wrong, you want to say, you know, I have new ideas. No, you want to understand the truth, and you love these people who have dedicated their life and have, you know, prepared and paved the way. You love the tradition, but then this tradition is always vital and can have offshoots. New ideas can come, new developments can happen, but out of love, respect, and loyalty, not as a person who rebels against the tradition or disregards the tradition and thinks that, you know, he understands everything better. So, one condition is to know what is available, but with love. Sometimes, you know, some people read in order to criticize or reject. Here you cannot understand, because there is, you know, already a mindset. So Mulla Sadra didn't stop with peripatetic philosophy, but he was a great commentator. He was appreciative and he was understanding, and he was able to offer some of the best comments on books by, for example, Ibn Sina. For example, he has comments and ta'liqat and shuruh on Ilahiyat Shifa by Ibn Sina, or Sharh al-Hidayat al-Athiriyya is also a kind of commentary on Falsafi Mashra. So Sheikh Ubudiyat says that we can consider him along with people like Farabi and Ibn Sina in understanding peripatetic philosophy. Although he has his own transcendent philosophy, but he understands that very well. Interestingly, similar thing can be said about Illuminationist school of philosophy, Hikmat Ishraq. He was so well informed about Hikmat Ishraq that his commentary on Hikmatul Ishraq by Sheikh Suhrawardi is a great source for understanding Hikmat Ishraq. And here Sheikh Ubudiyat says we can consider him along with Sheikh Ishraq. So in peripatetic philosophy, we can consider him as pioneers in Hikmat Mashai, like Farabi and Ibn Sina. In Hikmat Ishraq, we can consider him as the founder of Hikmat Ishraq. Fifth, he had great acquaintance with religious scriptures. His understanding of kalam, fiqh, hadith, tafsir, akhlaq are outstanding. He has, inshallah we'll talk about this more, he has tafsir of Quran and also tafsir, of course, not all Quran, unfortunately his life didn't last enough to complete. He has tafsir of parts of the Quran and commentary on usul kafi, especially the i'tiqadi section, because it's not complete, but great part of usul kafi about Acquainted, he has commentary. So he's very much familiar with this kind of sciences. 6, he had strong memory, critical mind, and he was very creative. He was not a person that was either hesitant in understanding things, because there are people that can never make up their mind. They are never convinced. But he was not also a person that was going to extreme and just issuing ideas and views and publishing and rushing in there and quickly coming to a conclusion. No. 7th point is that he had also access to many books. One, because as we said, he was born into a rich family, so this was helping him to be able to get hold of books. Secondly, he was in places and hubs of learning. For example, the main thing we said about Isfahan, and he had access to libraries and books there. 8 is that he attended lectures of some of the best scholars of his time, like Sheikh Bahai, Mir Damad, and maybe Mir Fendresky. Number 9 was that he didn't spend his life in other activities. He spent and dedicated his life to learning and thinking and spirituality. So it's not that, for example, he accepted other tasks or positions or did, for example, business, etc. No. His life was dedicated to learning, teaching, reflecting, ibadah, meditation. Number 10, his intention, as we said before, was just to understand the truth, not to become famous or to get a certificate or degree or money or be employed. No. Number 11, which is somehow understandable from what we said so far, is that he had access not just in the form of books, because sometimes we have also access. Today, alhamdulillah, we have access to all the books almost available. Everywhere you have access, even if you are away from libraries, through internet, through softwares. But he had access, and he actually got into knowing the best findings of scholars. For example, Bahman Yar, the famous student of Ibn Sina, or Mir Damad, or Khaja Nasiruddin Tusi, Qutbuddin Shirazi, Mir Said Sharif Jurjani, Fakhruddin Razi, and comments on him, Dawani, philosophers from Maktab Shiraz, from the school of Shiraz. He was familiar with ʿIrfan Nazari by Ibn Arabi and the commentaries. So a person with high intelligence, with dedicated life, with continuity, not few days studying, few days not studying, having great teachers, great books, and trying to understand everything, and at the same time to meditate, to reflect, to try to absorb them and try to ask Allah for guidance, gave him a special and unique kind of opportunity. Therefore, he managed to introduce a consistent system. It's very important, the author emphasizes on this point, that hikmat muta'aliyah is not just collection of ideas which are forced to sit together. No, it's a consistent system that has organically developed and benefits from Burhan, from Irfan, and from Quran. So Burhan, Irfan, Quran all come together because they are all our routes or paths towards truth. And if we understand them well, there is no conflict. Then there is a discussion about his works, his books. Those books which are available, which are published, can be divided into 5 groups. Philosophical texts, in the sense that they have philosophical approach mainly. Maybe they discuss also other subjects, but with philosophical approach. One is الحكمة المتعالية في الأسفار العقلية الأربع. Okay, it's Azan time in Qom, so inshallah we will continue after 20 minutes, inshallah, or